Welcome to the 1,000 Nights and 1 Night. Now, when it was the 217th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that Kamar al-Zaman agreed with his wife, Queen Budur, upon this matter, and told King Armanus what she had said, whereat he rejoiced with great joy. Then he went out, and seating himself upon his chair of estate, assembled all the wazirs, emirs, chamberlains, and grandees, to whom he related the whole story of Kamar al-Zaman and his wife, Queen Budur, from first to last, and acquainted them with his desire to marry his daughter Hayat al-Nufus to the prince, and make him king in the stead of Queen Budur. Whereupon said they all, Since he is the husband of Queen Budur, who hath been our king till now, whilst we deemed her son-in-law to King Armanus, we are all content to have him be to sultan over us, and we will be his servants, nor will we swerve from his allegiance. So Armanus rejoiced hereat, and summoning Kazi and witnesses and the chief officers of state, bade draw up the contract of marriage between Kamar al-Zaman and his daughter, the Princess Hayat al-Nufus. Then he held high festival, giving sumptuous marriage feasts, and bestowing costly dresses of honor upon all the emirs and captains of the host. Moreover, he distributed alms to the poor and needy, and set free all the prisoners. The whole world rejoiced in the coming of Kamar al-Zaman to the throne, blessing him and wishing him endurance of glory and prosperity, renown, and felicity. And as soon as he became king, he remitted the customs due to release all men who remained in Gaul. Thus he abode a long while ordering himself worthily towards his lieges, and he lived with his 2 wives in peace, happiness, constancy, and content, lying the night with each of them in turn. He ceased not from after this fashion during many years, for indeed all his troubles and afflictions were blotted out from him, and he forgot his father, King Shahriman, and his former estate of honor and favor with him. After a while, Almighty Allah blessed him with 2 boy children, as they were 2 shining moons through his 2 wives. The eldest, whose name was Prince Amjad, by Queen Budur, and the younger, whose name was Prince Asad, by Queen Hayat al-Nufus. And this one was comelier than his brother. They were reared in splendor and tender affection, in respectful bearing, and in the perfection of training, and they were instructed in penmanship and science, and the arts of government and horsemanship, till they attained the extreme of accomplishment and the utmost limit of beauty and loveliness, both men and women being ravished by their charms. They grew up side by side till they reached the age of 17, eating and drinking together and sleeping in one bed, nor ever parting at any time or tide, wherefore all the people envied them. Now, when they came to man's estate and were endowed with every perfection, their father was wont as often as he went on a journey to make them sit in his stead by turns in the hall of judgment, and each did pass judgment among the folk 1 day at a time. But it came to pass by confirmed fate and determined lot, that love for Asad, son of Queen Hayat al-Nufus, rose in the heart of Queen Budur, and that affection for Amjad, son of Queen Budur, rose in the heart of Queen Hayat al-Nufus. Hence it was that each of the women used to sport and play with the son of her sister wife, kissing him and straining him to her bosom, whilst each mother thought that the other's behavior arose from maternal affection. On this wise, passion got the mastery of the 2 women's hearts, and they became madly in love with the 2 youths, so that when the other son came into either of them, she would press him to her breast and long for him never to be parted from her, till at last, when waiting grew longsome to them and they found no path to enjoyment, they refused meat and drink and banished the solace of sleep. Presently the king fared forth to course and chase, bidding his 2 sons to sit to do justice in his stead, each 1 day in turn, as was their wont. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 218th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the king fared forth to sport and hunt, bidding his two sons to sit to do justice in his stead, each one day by turn, as was their wont. Now Prince Amjad sat in judgment the first day, bidding and forbidding, appointing and disposing, giving and refusing, and Queen Hayat al-Nufus, mother of Asad, wrote to him a letter, suing for his favor and discovering to him her passion and devotion, altogether putting off the mask and giving him to know that she desired to enjoy him. So she took a scroll, and thereon indited these cadences from the love deranged, the sorrowful and estranged, whose torment is prolonged for the longing of thee. Were I to recount to thee the extent of my care, and what sadness I bear, the passion which my heart doth tear, and all that I endure for weeping and unrest, and the rending of my soulful breast, my unremitting grief, and my woe without relief, and all my suffering for severance of thee, and sadness and love's ardency, no letter could contain it, nor calculation could compass it. Indeed, earth and heaven upon me are strait, and I have no hope and no trust but what from thee I await. Upon death I am come nigh, and the horrors of dissolution I abide. Burning upon me is sore with parting pangs and estrangement galore. Were I to set forth the yearnings that possess me more and more, no scrolls would suffice to hold such store, and of the excess of my pain and pine I have made the following lines. Were I to dwell on heart-consuming heat, unease and transport in my spirit meet, nothing were left of ink and reeden pen, nor aught of paper, nor not e'en a sheet. Then Queen Hayat al-Nufus wrapped up her letter in a piece of costly silk, scented with musk and ambergris, and folded it up with her silken hair strings, whose cost swallowed down treasures, laid it on the handkerchief, and gave it to her eunuch, bidding him bear it to Prince Amjad. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased saying her permitted say. Now, when it was the 119th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that she gave her missive to the eunuch, in waiting and bidding him bear it to the Prince Amjad. And the eunuch went forth, ignoring what the future hid for him, for the Omniscient ordereth events even as he willeth. And going into the prince, kissed the ground between his hands, and handed to him the letter. On receiving the kerchief, he opened it, and reading the epistle, and recognizing its gist, he was aware that his father's wife was essentially an adulteress and a traitress at the heart of her husband, King Kamar al-Zaman. So he waxed wroth with exceeding wrath, and railed at women and their works, saying, Allah curse women, the traitoress, the imperfect in reason and religion. Then he drew his sword, and said to the eunuch, Out on thee, O thou wicked slave! Dost thou carry messages of disloyalty for thy lord's wife? By Allah, there is no good in thee, O black of hue and heart, O foul of face and nature's forming. So he smote him on the neck, and severed his head from his body. Then folding the kerchief over its contents, he thrust it into his breast pocket, and went into his own mother, and told her what had passed, reviling and reproaching her, and saying, Each one of you is viler than the other. And by Allah, the great and the glorious, did I not fear ill-manneredly to transgress against the rights of my father Kamar al-Zaman and my brother Prince Asad, I would assuredly go into her and cut off her head, even as I cut off that of her eunuch. Then he went forth from his mother in a mighty rage. And when the news reached Queen Hayat al-Nufus of what he had done with her eunuch, she abused him and cursed him and plotted perfidy against him. He passed the night sick with rage, wrath, and concern, nor found he pleasure in meat, drink, or sleep. And when the next morning dawned, Prince Asad fared forth in his turn to rule the folk in his father's stead, while his mother, Hayat al-Nufus, awoke in feeble plight because of what she had heard from Prince Amjad concerning the slaughter of her eunuch. So Prince Asad sat in the audience chamber that day, judging and administering, justice, appointing and deposing, bidding and forbidding, giving and bestowing. And he ceased not thus till near the time of afternoon prayer, when Queen Budur sent for a crafty old woman, and discovering to her what was in her heart, wrote a letter to Prince Asad, complaining of the excess of her affection and desire for him in these cadenced lines: From her who perish for pleasure and passion for long forlorn, to him who in nature and culture is goodliest born, to him who is conceited of his own loveliness and glories in an amorous grace, who from those that seek to enjoy him averteth his face, and refuseth to show favour unto the self-abasing and base, him who in cruel and of disdain mood, from the lover despairing of good, to Prince Asad, with passing beauty endowed, and of excelling grace proud, of the face moon bright, and the brow flower white, and dazzling splendid light. This is my letter to him whose love melteth my body, and rendeth my skin and bones. Know that my patience faileth me quite, and I am perplexed in my plight. Longing and restlessness weary me, and sleep and patience deny themselves to me. But mourning and watching stick fast to me, and desire and passion torment me, and the extremes of languor and sickness have shent me. Yet may my life be a ransom for thee, albeit thy pleasure be to slay her who loveth thee. And Allah prolong the life of thee, and preserve thee from all infirmity. And after these cadences she wrote these couplets: Fate hath commanded I become thy fair, O shining like full moon when clearest clear. All beauty dost embrace, all eloquence, brighter than aught within our worldly sphere. Content am I by my torture, thou be happily shalt alms me with one lovely leer. Happy her death who dieth for thy love, no good in her who beholdeth thee undear. And also the following couplets: Unto thee, Asad, of passion pangs complain, have ruth on slave of love so burnt with flaming pain. How long, I ask, shall hands of love disport with me, with longings, dolor, sleepiness, and bale and bane? Anon, I plain of sea and heart, anon of fire. In vitals, O strange case, dear wish my fate is fain. O blamer, cease thy blame, and seek thyself to fly from love which maketh thine eyes a reel of tears to rain. How oft I cry for absence and desire, grief, but all my crying not of gain for me shall gain. Thy rigours dealt me, sickness passing power to bear. Thou art my only leech, assain me an thou deign. O chider, chide me not in caution, for I doubt that plaguery love to thee shall also deal about. Then Queen Budur perfumed the letter paper with a profusion of odorous musk, and winding it in her hair strings, which were of Iraqi silk, with pendants of oblong emeralds set with pearls and stones of price, delivered it to the old woman, bidding her carry it to Prince Asad. So did so in order to pleasure her, and going into the prince straightway and without stay, found him in his own rooms, and delivered to him the letter in privacy, after which she stood waiting an hour or so for the answer. When Asad had read the paper and knew its purport, he wrapped it up again in the ribbons, and putting it in his bosom pocket, then, for he was wroth beyond all measure of wrath, he cursed false women, and sprang up, and drawing his sword, smote the old trot on the neck, and cut off her pate. Thereupon he went in to his mother, Queen Hayat al-Nufus, whom he found lying on her bed in feeble case, for that which had betided her with Prince Amjad, and railed at her and cursed her, after which he left her and foregathered with his brother, to whom he related all that had befallen him with Queen Budur, and adding, By Allah, O my brother, but that I was ashamed before thee, I had gone in to her forthright, and had smitten her head off her shoulders. Replied Prince Amjad, By Allah, O my brother, yesterday, when I was sitting upon the seat of judgment, the like of what hath befallen thee this day befell me also with thy mother, who sent me a letter of similar purport. And he told him all that had passed, adding, By Allah, O my brother, naught but respect for thee withheld me from going into her and dealing with her even as I dealt with the eunuch. They passed the rest of the night conversing and cursing false womankind, and agreed to keep the matter secret lest their father should hear of it and kill the two women. Yet they ceased not to suffer trouble and foresee affliction. And when the morrow dawned, the king returned with his suite from hunting and sat a while in his chair of estate, after which he sent the emirs about their businesses and went up to his palace, where he found his two wives lying abed, and both exceeding sick and weak. Now they had made a plot against their two sons, and concerted to them away their lives, for that they had exposed themselves before them, and feared to be at their mercy, and depended upon their forbearance. When Kamar al-Zaman saw them on this wise, he said to them, What aileth you? Whereupon they rose to him, and kissing his hands, answered, perverting the case, and saying, Know, O king, that thy two sons, who have been reared in thy bounty, have played thee false, and have dishonored thee in the person of thy wives. Now when he heard this, the light became darkness in his sight, and he raged with such wrath that his reason fled. Then said he to them, Explain me this matter. Replied Queen Budur, O King of the age, know that these many days past thy son Asad hath been in the persistent habit of sending me letters and messages to solicit me to lewdness and adultery, and I still forbade him from this, but he would not be forbidden. And when thou wentest forth to hunt, he rushed in on me, drunk and with a drawn sword in his hand, and smiting my eunuch, slew him. Then he mounted on my breast, still holding the sword, and I feared lest he should slay me if I gainsayed him, even as he slain my eunuch. So he took his wicked will of me by force. And now if thou do me no justice on him, O king, I will slay myself with my own hand, for I have no need of life in the world after this foul deed. And Queen Hayat al-Nufus, choking with tears, told him respecting Prince Amjad a story like that of her sister wife. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 220th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that Queen Hayat al-Nufus told her husband King Kamar al-Zaman a story like that of her sister in wedlock. Budur, and quoth she, The same thing befell me with thy son Amjad. After which she took to weeping and wailing, and said, Except thou do me justice on this, I will tell my father King Armanus. Then both women wept with sore weeping before King Kamar al-Zaman, who, when he saw their tears and heard their words, concluded that their story was true, and waxing wroth beyond measure of wrath, went forth thinking to fall upon his two sons and put them to death. On his way he met his father-in-law, King Armanus, who, hearing of his return from the chase, had come to salute him at the very hour, and seeing him with naked brand in hand and blood dripping from his nostrils for excess of rage, asked him what aileth him. So King Kamar al-Zaman told him all that his sons Amjad and Alshad had done, and added, And here I am going into them to slay them in the foulest way, and make of them the most shameful of examples. Quoth King Armanus, and indeed he too was wroth with them, Thou dost well, O my son, and may Allah not bless them, nor any sons that do such deeds against their father's honor. But, O my son, the slayer of the old saw saith, Whoso looketh not to the end hath not fortune to friend. In any case, they are thy sons, and it befitteth not that thou kill them with thine own hand, lest thou drink of their death agony. And anon repent of having slain them, and whenas repenteth availeth thee naught. Rather do thou send them with one of thy Mamelukes into the desert, and let him kill them, and there out of thy sight, for as saith the adage, Out of sight of my friend is better and pleasanter. And when Kamar al-Zaman heard his father-in-law's words, he knew them to be just. So he sheathed his sword, and turning back, sat down upon the throne of his realm. Then he summoned his treasurer, a very old man, versed in affairs and in fortune's vicissitudes, to whom he said, Go into my sons, Amjad and Asad. Bind their hands behind them with strong bonds. Lay them in 2 chests and load them upon a mule. Then take horse thou and carry them into the mid-desert, where do thou kill them both, and fill 2 vials with their blood, and bring the same to me in haste. Replied the treasurer, I hear and I obey. And he rose up hurriedly and went out forthright to seek the princes. And on his road he met them coming out of the palace vestibule, for they had donned their best clothes and their richest, and they were on their way to salute their sire and give him joy of his safe return from his going forth to hunt. Now when he saw them, he laid hands on them, and saying, O my sons, know ye that I am but a slave commanded, and that your father hath laid a commandment on me. Will ye obey his commandment? They said, Yes. Whereupon he went up to them, and after pinioning their arms, laid them in the chest, which he loaded on the back of a mule. And he took them out of the city. And he ceased not carrying them into the open country till near noon, when he halted in a wasted, desolate place, and dismounting from his mare, let down the 2 chests from the mules' backs. Then he opened them, and took out Amjad and Asad, and when he looked upon them, he wept sore for their beauty and loveliness. Then drawing his sword, he said to them, By Allah, O my lords, indeed it is hard for me to deal so evilly by you, but I am to be excused in this matter, being but a slave commanded, for that your father, King Kamar al-Zaman, hath bidden me strike off your heads. They replied, O Amir, do the king's bidding, for we bear with patience that which Allah, to whom be honor, might, and glory, hath decreed to us, and thou art quit of our blood. Then they embraced and bade each other farewell. And Asad said to the treasurer, Allah upon thee, O uncle, spare me the sight of my brother's death agony, and make me not drink of his anguish, but kill me first, for that were the easier for him. And Amjad said the like, and entreated the treasurer to kill him before Asad, saying, My brother is younger than I, so make me not taste of his anguish. And they both wept bitter tears, whilst the treasurer wept for their weeping. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased saying her permitted say. Now, when it was the 221st night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the treasurer wept for their weeping. Then the 2 brothers embraced, and bade farewell one to the other. All this cometh of the malice of those traitoresses, my mother and thy mother, and this is the reward of my forbearance towards thy mother, and of thy forbearance towards my mother? But there is no might, and there is no majesty, save in Allah, the glorious, the great. Verily, we are in Allah's, and unto him we are returning. And Asad embraced his brother, sobbing and repeating these couplets. O thou, to whom sad trembling waits, in fear complain, O ever ready whatso cometh to sustain. The sole resource for me is at thy door to knock, at whose door knock on thou to open wilt thou not deign? O thou whose grace is treasured to be the one word, be, favor me, I beseech in thee all weals contain. Now when Amjad heard his brothers weeping, he wept also, and pressing him to his bosom, repeated these 2 couplets. O thou whose boon to me are more than one, whose gifts and favors have not count nor bound. No stroke of all fate's strokes e'en fail on me, but thee to take me by the hand I found. Then said Amjad to the treasurer, I conjure thee by the one omnipotent, the Lord of mercy, the beneficent, slay me before my brother Asad, so happily shall the fire be quenched in my heart's core, and in his life burn no more. But Asad wept and exclaimed, Not so, I will die first. Whereupon quoth Amjad, It were best that I embrace thee and thou embrace me, so the sword may fall upon us and slay us both in a single stroke. Thereupon they embraced, face to face, and clung to each other straitly, whilst the treasurer tied up the twain and bound them fast with cords, weeping the while. Then he drew his blade and said to them, By Allah, O my lords, it is indeed hard for me to slay you, but have ye no last wishes that I may fulfill, or charges which I may carry out, or messages which I may deliver? Replied Amjad, we have no wish, and my only charge to thee is that thou set my brother below, and me above him, that the blow may fall on me first, and when thou hast killed us, and returnest to the king, and he asketh thee, what heardest thou from before their death? Do answer, verily, thy sons salute thee, and say to thee, thou knewest not if we were innocent or guilty, yet hast thou put us to death, and hast not certified thyself of our sin, nor looked upon into our case. Then do thou repeat to him these couplets. Women are Satan's maid for the woe of men. I fly to Allah from their devilish scathe, source of whatever bale befell our kind, in worldly matters and in things of faith. Continued Amjad, we desire of thee not, but that thou repeat to our sire these two couplets. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. And so do I cease my tale for the day, until it be morrow.